January 8th, Jim, Elliot. You often have to choose. Do what's loving or do what's safe. Choose eternal. Deep in the Amazon jungle, the Waodani tribe lived as if it were still in the Stone Age. For hundreds of years, they met all intruders, from conquistadors to gold hunters, with spears. In 1955, oil companies with soldiers invaded the territory, and the Waodani retaliated. They killed the oil company's employees. Now, rumors abounded, plans for the military to eradicate the Waodani nuisance. In nearby Shendia, 28-year-old Elliot and his fellow missionaries prayed for a chance to contact the Waodani before the military could attack and wipe out the natives. One day, a Waodani girl fled the tribe and befriended missionary Rachel Saint. As the trust in their relationship grew, the girl taught Rachel and the rest of the team some simple phrases from the tribe's hidden language. Seeing a window of opportunity to reach the tribe, Jim organized a plan and put it into action. In a small plane, for 13 weeks, the missionaries flew over the village in tight circles, dropped a rope, and dangled a bucket of gifts like rock salt and buttons. With a loudspeaker, they broadcast simple phrases of friendship the girl had taught them. "We like you. We are your friends." Pretty soon, the Waodani responded by putting gifts in the bucket for the missionaries. Ecstatic and full of hope, the missionaries planned for the men to have a face-to-face meeting with the natives. Of course, there was danger. These people had never welcomed outsiders. Jim, his friends, and their wives talked about the possibility that the men would not return, but they believed the only way to convince the Waodani that Jesus loved them was to avoid violence. So, the missionaries took a vow. They would not use violence. When the time came, Jim Elliot, Ed McCulley, Roger Udarian, Nate Saint, and Pete Fleming headed out. On a sandbar near the Waodani village, the men set up camp. Soon, 3 Waodani made a friendly visit to their camp, a sign to the missionaries that their plan to befriend the tribe was working. Then, a few days later, on January 8th, 1957, 2 Waodani women stepped out of the jungle, a disarming distraction from what was about to happen. Suddenly, loud and angry warriors with spears surrounded the missionaries. Jim fired warning shots into the air, but he refused to shoot the warriors. They rushed him, speared him, killed them all. At 4:30 that afternoon, the wives of the missionaries waited for a scheduled radio check-in, but it never came. The rescue party discovered 4 bodies, all speared to death. A 5th body was later recovered downstream. Jim Elliot and his friends gave what they couldn't keep to gain what they could not lose. 2 years later, Jim's young widow, Elizabeth, continued Jim's work in the Stone Age village of her husband's killers. And it wasn't long before the Waodani asked why Jim hadn't shot them. They didn't understand his choice to freely give up his life until they heard about another man, Jesus, who had willingly given up his life. The rescue party found Jim's journal. In the last entry, he wrote, "Perhaps, in mercy, he shall give me a host of children, i.e. converts. But if not, if only I may see him, touch his garments, and smile into his eyes. Ah, then, not stars nor children shall matter, only himself." Jim Elliot really believed scripture passages like Luke 9:24. "For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will save it." He not only believed it, he lived it. Elliot emptied himself and spent everything he had so that he might gain eternity. It's like Jesus said in Luke 16:9, "I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Take a moment to think about what you hold on to most tightly. Can you keep it forever? You often have to choose. Do what's loving or do what's safe. Choose eternal.
Welcome to 365 Christian Men. My name is Jeff Galasso, and I'm coming to you from Arvada, Colorado. And today's January 8th. The story about Jim Elliot. What an amazing story, amazing man. And the 4 other men that went with him to this Ecuador to share the gospel of Christ with the unreached. So I got to tell you, I had to watch a movie called The End of the Spear, and it's directed by a good friend of mine, Jim Hainan. It's an older movie, but it talks about Jim Elliot and the story of all the men and their families, what they gave up and what their vision was from God and what their drive was from God. And they followed it. They did exactly what God wanted them to do, knowing full well that they wouldn't make it back to their family, possibly. And of course, they gave up their lives. The most challenging thing for me, and I challenge you as well, is what the narrator said. Are you willing to give up what you cannot keep in order to gain what you cannot lose? Are we willing, am I willing to give up my life, my comforts of my family, comforts of American life, to share the gospel with those that don't know Christ, in order to gain what I cannot lose? I can't lose. If you're a Christian and you've asked Christ into your heart, you can't lose your salvation. You cannot lose all of eternity with Christ. You won't be able to, you can't lose that. So that's my challenge to you today, man, to share, to follow the leading of the Lord, which whatever He tells you to do, knowing that you may have to give up some of the comforts of life to do that, but share them with your neighbors, your relatives, your coworkers. If you travel, just share it with somebody. They'll see Christ in your life, and it will change, it could change their life on this earth and for eternity. Thank you, man. Have a great day.